Hello. This recording is mainly for understanding how we can quickly get ready for our ISC competition, right? So the International Speech Contest, I assume most of you will have it in the next few months, February, max March, or maybe April for some risk takers. And I understand since we are in the third week of January, it gives a realistic chance for those who have completed level 1 to give it a shot to get eligible for the International Speech Contest. That being said, I know some projects do take time. Some of you might be in level 1 and may give it a shot. All the best to you. This resource may come in handy. But for the purpose of this recording, it's going to be mainly level 2 and how to get your ISC speech mentored and all set for the club ISC contest or for the area level ISC. With that, let's get started with our session. I'm going to share my whole screen with you, or rather, share my screen now. Got it. So as you can see, just 17 screens and some of them are just titles, so don't worry at all. We'll be done in no time. There you go. Quick prep for the International Speech Contest. I'm going to be covering tips on meeting the eligibility criteria, some speech ideas for the various projects, and of course, how to upgrade your speech. My name is Krishnesh Nayak. I've been a Toastmaster for a while now, and currently I am serving as the Associate Program Quality Director for District 124 for the term 2023-2024. With that, let's get started. Okay. So eligibility criteria, I'm sure a lot of you are already aware. You need to be a paid member. Your club needs to be in good standing. So to be eligible to compete in any official Toastmaster speech contest, a member must be a paid member of the club in the area, division, district, in whichever they're competing. And the club must also be in good standing. So 8 members at least. And then another important part is the levels of projects that you've completed in your pathways. I would like to safely assume that most of you who eventually refer to this resource will not be taking up the clause for the competent communicator manual, but because this is for people who've joined really way back. And it's not in use anymore. We use the pathways right now. So you need to have earned certificates of completion in levels 1 and 2 of any path in the Toastmasters Pathway Learning Experience prior to the club contest. I understand we had 11 and next year onwards, in fact, it's already become 6, but those of you who have selected one of those 11, even if they're not available right now, you can still go ahead and finish those paths. You still need to. And for the ISC, you need to have finished level 1 and level 2. Also, I'm sure there are a few members from charter clubs. If a charter member of a club can, of course, participate, but make sure that it is 1 year before the club contest. And more importantly, this is a clause which you have to first get in touch with your area director. Ensure that the club must have officially chartered before the area contest. So this is as soon as you realize that you have some members in a newly chartered club and you're the VP head or the president, make sure you reach out to the area director and figure out when the area contest is. Because this criteria of the club having to have officially chartered before the area contest is very vital. Next, let's go to the Speaker certification of eligibility and originality, that's one of those, that's the document that you will be, as an ISC participant, you'll be asked to sign and give it to the contest chair. So make sure you get to do that. Next, I'm going to show you about the various projects that you have to finish to ensure that your level 2 is complete. Now, across the 11 paths, there are 8 projects that you need to complete, but mostly it's going to be, as in you have to complete only 3 in any given pathway, in any given path of the Pathways program. So let's take a look at everything. Don't be overwhelmed by this. So the ones in yellow that you see, those are the projects that you have to do based on which path you have taken in the Pathways program. So let's say you have chosen dynamic leadership, or maybe effective coaching, or visionary communication. Then know your leadership and know your communication style. Those are 2 projects that you need to do, as well as introduction to Toastmasters mentoring, which is the common project across all 11 paths, right? So depending on which path you have chosen, it will be a combination of these, right? So you need to complete 3 projects to finish level 2. Which are those 3? You have to look at this based on which path you have chosen. Right now, let's straight away get into what ticks in each of these projects, or what are the tips that we can use. How do we use a checkbox to tick off each of these projects so that you can complete your level? Let's start with knowing your leadership style, right? And this is where I will briefly stop sharing and address you all. Got it. Okay. So now when we have to talk about knowing your leadership style, in this project, what you have to do is you will be crafting a speech to highlight your leadership style using various life experiences. So it's beneficial to draw upon a diverse range of situations that showcase different aspects or different facets of your leadership style. So uh, let's say, now let me list out a few. So some of you may have worked in team projects, maybe in school, maybe in college, maybe at work. So highlight instances where you took charge or you collaborated effectively in group projects. So you demonstrate how you started your leadership skills, you started honing your leadership skills early in life. 2, you could start with, you could talk about how you participated in sports. Now, there might be some of you who play various sports, more than one sport, and each sport comes with a degree of team, uh, you know, uh, team bonding, or it's a team sports. So let's say football, definitely a team sport. Cricket, it is arguable. Badminton, if it's singles, of course not. Doubles, definitely a team sport. Yeah, so these kind of things. So then you figure out how you can discuss how being a part of a sports team. What did it teach you about teamwork? What did it teach you about discipline? What did it teach you about strategic thinking? So these are things that you can put into your speech when you're talking about your leadership style. You can talk about volunteer work, where you share experiences from volunteering. You emphasize how you motivated not only yourself, but you also others, and you organized groups for a common cause. You can talk about professional challenges at work, right? We have so many corporate clubs. Narrate specific instances from your professional life where you successfully led a team through a challenge, or you achieved a significant milestone, though you had to face hurdles, or how your leadership ensured those hurdles were not didn't appear in the first place, right? Something on those lines. Next, let's say you talk about mentoring relationships, right? Sometimes some mentors get difficult proteges, or sometimes you might get a difficult mentor. So you talk about your role as a mentor or a protege, and how guiding others, or how you sought guidance and how it contributed to the other person's growth. Of course, mentor-mentee, both of them grow in that relationship. So how did it contribute? How did your relation grow? How did it lead to eventual success? It all happens with leadership. Handling crisis situations. So this is where actual leadership comes to the fore. So describe how you managed and led during a crisis. Showcase your ability to stay composed, or how you're able to guide others when they were uncertain. And so these are some tips or some ideas that you could use in your speech when you're talking about knowing your leadership. Uh, how about when you talk about you being involved with the community, right? So you share experiences from community projects or initiatives. So let's say you're with Rotaract, or you're working with for a blood donation, a marathon, of any of those. You talk about your ability to build on community projects and initiatives, how you emphasize your commitment to making a positive impact. Similarly, leading change initiatives. It goes without saying how difficult it is for anyone to get out of their comfort zone. So when there is a change involved, right? So let's say you were one of those VP heads who saw the transition from competent communicator manual to the pathways. How did your members uh, react to that change? As a leader, how did you manage to solve that? So discuss instances where you spearheaded change, or you within an organization. You showcase how you were adaptable, how you were forward thinking. Right? So these are things that you can bring to the fore. Cross-cultural leadership. Now, this is it opens up a completely new aspect where you show you're going to be leading diverse teams and how you navigate cultural differences, and with the objective of fostering collaboration. So this is it's of course more difficult, but since we're talking about how you draw from experience, right? So if you are one of those who has worked in a diverse team, go ahead and bring this out. Then let's talk about conflict resolution, of course. Yeah, irrespective of whether you're a housewife or a corporate or a student, conflicts are everywhere, and how you resolve it depends, really decides how happy or how well you live your life. So narrate situations where you successfully resolved conflicts within a team, with your friends, with your colleagues, with your better half, with your family. And you have to show how you were able to emphasize on your diplomatic and problem solving skills. And that brings the leadership forward. And for the entrepreneurs here, of course, getting into entrepreneurship or getting into a business venture, if relevant, talk about your experience in entrepreneurship, highlight your vision, how you how you took risks, and the ability to build and lead a team given the various uncertainties, right? So as a leader, what did you do? So these are things which you can also use. Then, of course, there's when you showcase how you learned from failure. So you share experiences where you faced setbacks or failures. You emphasize on how you use these as learning opportunities and how you emerge stronger. Goes without saying, a good leader never gets, or even if they get knocked down, they always get back. So this is exactly what I'm talking about. So how do you get back from a failure? And so that will actually show how well you have honed your leadership skills. Then there's balancing work and personal life, right? So how, as a leader, you can discuss how you maintain a balance between work and personal life. You showcase your commitment to overall well-being. And in leadership, because to balance this, you need to be able to uh, show those leadership skills to ensure that this happens, right? So was there a situation in office where they asked you to to sacrifice on your personal life, the time you spend there, or was it too demanding from your personal life, and how you handled it? So these are things which you can talk about if it is relevant. I'm sure some of you who have not faced some of these situations were like, oh, okay, I can't relate to it. But if that is at least a couple or a few points that I've said, or few ideas that I've said, go ahead and use that, right? And then of course you will always have at least you must have met at least a few Toastmasters and distinguished Toastmasters who you are surprised at how they are still learning, right? So after all these years, or in fact, you will see people joining Toastmasters pretty late in their career or in their life, and it all boils down to their uh, ability to have that urge to learn, right? So people like those, you could highlight instances where you embraced, how you embrace this learning mindset. You showcase your adaptability and your commitment to personal growth, right? So it doesn't matter if you've retired, doesn't matter if you've, if you're already a senior vice president, but you still want to learn, right? So these are things that you can talk about, that this is why I joined Toastmasters, right? So I think I covered around 12, 13 ideas which you could use for, talking about your leadership style. And let me see if I can get them on. Jesus. Right, right. There we go. So your leadership style. Let's see what we have here. So in the next slide are the points that I just mentioned to you about, talking about team projects in schools, colleges, participation in sports, volunteer work, your professional challenges, your mentoring relationships, how you handle crisis situations, and your involvement in the community. Similarly, you have how you're leading change initiatives, cross-cultural leaderships, resolving conflict, your business and entrepreneurial ventures, how you learn from failure, how you can, as a leader, how you're balancing work and personal life, and of course, continuous learning, right? So I'm sure each one of you has gone through at least one of these, mm, scenarios in your life. So use that experience to build this particular uh, project speech. Similarly, we have how you can talk about your communication style. So in the communication style, again, let me go back to my notes and share that with you. Right. So in your communication style, what you have to do is you will be crafting a speech to highlight your communication style that involves drawing on various life experiences, just like we did in the leadership. But in this instance, it will showcase your ability to articulate ideas. It will showcase your ability to connect with others and adapt to diverse communication contexts, right? So here, life experiences you might consider incorporating into your speech could be if you've spoken in public, so you've had public speaking engagements. So how do you communicate with the audience? You discuss experience where you spoke in public forums. You emphasize your ability to convey ideas clearly and engage the audience. And if you didn't do well, great. Just like I spoke earlier, you show how you learned or you learned from your failures. And in case you have, if you have had conversations which dealt with conflict resolutions, of course, those are some things which you could do. How do you communicate at networking events, right? So, how do you initiate and maintain meaningful conversations at networking events? That's one of the main things that you need to cover in this. How do you communicate when that is when there's a diverse team, so cross-cultural communication. So you will discuss experiences where you were able to effectively or not effectively communicate across cultural differences. You showcase your adaptability and cultural sensitivity, right? I've seen so many places where you know uh, it just comes out that you may not be so aware of what is the right thing to say or how do you address a particular person. So were you sensitive enough to not say that, or were you educated in that moment? How did you deal with that? These are all things that can encompass as a part of what communication is and what your communication style is. Then, of course, as a leader, how do you communicate? So, leadership communication. You will highlight instances where your communication skills played a crucial role in leading teams. So, something you said drove an initiative, something you said led your team, right? So, leadership communication is something which you can take. Then, of course, there's social media engagement, or let's say you're writing blogs. The communication over there is again different. So, if it is relevant to you, talk about your experience with social media communication. Emphasize your ability to engage and connect with a diverse audience, especially online, right? Then there's client presentations. So you share your experiences from presentations that you made to your client. You emphasize on how you're able to communicate effectively to different stakeholders, right? That's what happens in a client meeting. So you have people from various backgrounds sitting there, various levels. They're all in different departments. They come from various education backgrounds. So how do you communicate in such a way that all of them get the message, right? So that's one thing which you could do. Similarly, if you've taken on teaching assignments, right? So be it teaching, uh, kids, or teaching your peers about something, how do you do it? Because the chances of them taking more time to learn something new and you being an expert, how well you are able to communicate, that will show your communication style. So that's something which you could do. Then there's family communication, of course. So when you talk about family communication, of course, you will need to address things like, silence, and you share insights from your experiences in family communication. So you highlight your ability to navigate personal dynamics, and you ensure that people are able to communicate effectively, irrespective of whether they are, speaking, or even if it is silence, or if it is uh, how they move their eyes, or with gestures. It's still communication. So you have to, you could that could be a funny take on how you talk about your communication style when it comes to your the family setting. And then there's community engagement. When you are trying to get a community engagement going, you have to be more inspiring. There's a call to action. So you narrate experiences from volunteer work. You emphasize your ability to mobilize and inspire, right? And then, of course, when you can highlight your style of communication when you talk about storytelling moments. So whether you told a story to a co-passenger in a train, or in the air as you were waiting for your flight which was delayed, or putting your kid to sleep, you're cooking up a story as a vague excuse for being late. So these are all storytelling moments, and this is where you can show your communication style. So these are good things to put in your speeches. And then there's when you have to adapt to different audiences, right? So how do you communicate when you have different or diverse audiences? You have to showcase flexibility and awareness. So how do you show that? So those are things which you can um, incorporate into your speech, these ideas. And of course, as evaluators, you've seen how evaluators communicate, how inspiring or how encouraging they are. So you highlight instances where you actively listened and you incorporated feedback. You emphasize on your commitment to continuous improvement, right, in communication. So these are that way you're able to present how being, or how evaluating, or how getting evaluated helps you in your communication journey. So you talk about your communication style in that way. So how do I communicate as an evaluator? Am I a no nonsense, you did this, which you shouldn't do? Or do you sugarcoat it in such a way that that probably that's how that person wants it? Or do you do it in a different way? So these are ways which you can um, showcase your communication style. So remember to tie all these experiences together in a way that paints a comprehensive picture of your communication style. So it has to emphasize on your strengths, weaknesses, of course. It has to focus on the growth that you had over time. It has to show your ability to convey a compelling narrative that will further showcase your style of communication, right? So these are again a lot of ideas that you could use when it comes to crafting your speech for the know your communication style. So let me show these to you. That we are finished with leadership, and then we go with communication. Yeah. So right? So networking events, social media engagement, community engagement, blogging, writing, client presentations, teaching, interviews. Oh yeah, if you have given interviews, how are you communicating when you give interviews? So were you nervous? Were you hard hitting? Were you able to answer everything? How you communicated? If there was a panel, how do you approach each of those? Was it a different communication style that you used? Did somebody need more examples? Did someone need you to be direct to the point? Those kind of things which you can talk about in this. Then there's public speaking engagements, how you facilitated workshops, conflict resolutions, of course, then cross-cultural communication, leadership, and feedback and listening skills. So these are all ideas that you could use when you are talking about your communication style. So those were the two main projects. One of these is mostly in one or the other parts, and then come to the other projects. So barring introduction to Toastmasters mentoring, let's go to the others, right? So you have these five. You have active listening, you have managing time, you have connect with the audience, cross-cultural understanding, and sense of humor. Now in active listening, you just have to play the table topic role, table topics master role. You show the difference between hearing and listening. And you need to be especially aware of not evaluating the impromptu speaker, right? You just show that you listened to what that person spoke on, right? So you could say things like, they share an experience and say, oh yeah, when you shared your experience, it took me back to the time when I had done this. So it was very refreshing to hear something like that. Or if somebody is talking about a memory, you talk about a memory which was similar or drastically different from that. And then you go ahead, okay, so who else wants to share something? And then you give them the tabletop, right? And make sure that you have an evaluator for this project. So when you are table topic master, make sure you have someone in the meeting who is evaluating how well you played the role of a table topic master using active listening in your role, right? So otherwise, you don't quite meet the objective of the project. So that is something that you need to do. Managing time. So this involves you filling a time and task log. And as you go through the project, you will realize how to set SMART goals. So SMART is specific, measurable, A for, can't recall, achievable, yeah. And then you have realistic and timely, right? So how do you make goals SMART? That way they are, you can get these things ticked off. As you go through the project, all the materials that are available on the dashboard, you will understand how to implement time management techniques, and one of the uh, main pains that we hear as vice presidents of education, or even as members from our friends who are members, I just don't get time to write the speech. So if the project is managing time and you set a goal of writing a speech, so the speech that you give for this is how you found time, how you manage time to write your speech, right? So what was keeping you from writing the speech? How you overcame it? that itself makes a speech. Right? So you could do that. And once you look at the resources available, you'll see how easy it is, or how Toastmasters has enabled you to manage time so that you're able to write a speech. Right? So that is something which you can do. Next, you have connect with your audience. So here, what you will do is you will focus on different audience types. So of course, you are, as a member of a particular club, you know most of the members there. You're very comfortable with them. You join the meeting 5 minutes early, or you hang out after the meeting. So they're all your friends, right? So you know how to talk to them. When you have to connect with your audience, here the challenge which is thrown to you is you pick a topic which you are sure or you think most of them are unaware of, right? Or even if it's a topic where you can choose to give it in a new club where nobody knows you, right? And in this process, you have to be aware of how the audience is reacting to your content. How are they reacting to your speech? And you have to make a connection with that audience based on their reaction. So if they are all in, go ahead and throw in a joke or two, go a little off the script. If they are not, again, you have to have something to say, or so you can add something to the speech so that they are able to connect. So it has to be very simple. So I recall one person who did this speech. He decided to speak about the Indian sari in a all women's club. So they were very familiar, but he went with content which he was not sure whether he wanted. So basically, he found himself talking to experts, making them interested in something which he was speaking on in simple language. That was the challenge which he had taken up. So that's again he's dealing with unfamiliarity. You could go the other way around. Had he given this speech in an all men's Toastmasters club, there he would have been somewhat of an expert, and he would be talking to a group of probably completely alien to the subject. So how does he manage to hold their interest, right? How does he manage to connect with that audience? That is the challenge that is thrown here. So of course, there are the ideas that I gave you earlier. You could use some of those itself here. It of course requires some research, but nothing that you can't do. I'm confident that most Toastmasters will. Excuse me. Then you have cross-cultural understanding. Now, this is something that one of the more difficult projects that I have worked with, and it is definitely present in maybe one or two um, paths. So, for those of you who have done it, all the best to you. I'm available in case you need my assistance, and of course, I'm sure your mentors are available. So, in this project, what you have to do is you will be studying cultures with which you identify and the impact of the language differences, biases, and stereotypes, right? So especially when you're in the when your demographic is the majority. So I've seen in clubs of a particular region. Let's say I'm based out of Kolkata right now in India, and though we don't have too many folks from Kolkata, I've been in clubs where somebody would just let it slip and say something in the vernacular, right? So, or if they're not able to attend something or they need help, they would say something like, okay, bondugona, okay, ashanta shopta, my Bengali so that would ashanta take to help check, right? So if they say something like that and somebody who's not too like me, who's not too well versed with Bengali and can't understand, they would have heard, okay, banduk, gun. Maybe he needs help with a gun. Am I in the right Toastmasters club? Something on those lines. So you have to understand. Bad example, but I hope the message came across. So cross-cultural understanding. You have to understand how language. So I just give an example of language. Then there's of course bias and stereotypes, which you might let slip. I can't even give an example uh, at the risk of offending someone who listens to this later. But you have stereotypes and biases which might slip out while communicating, and that is something which you need to. In this speech, you will show how you educated yourself, how you either how you are aware of not doing that or how you did do that mistake and how you learned from it. So these are ways that you can identify this project as you go through the manual, as you go through the content available on the dashboard. You will see the amount of research that is required, especially when you start self-reflecting on what are your biases when you start asking yourself those questions. So of course, this, like I said, this is one of the most more difficult projects that I have attempted. It requires a lot of research, and all the best to whoever is trying it. The best of luck also goes to the next project, which is finding out your sense of humor. And this is, of course, according to me, this is one of the most difficult one in this lot. So in this, what you have to do is you have to share an anecdote or story that is intended to entertain the audience, right? So most of the others will be inspiring, call to action, encouraging. You're talking about, something, talking about your style, talking about, something else. But this one, the majority of the focus of the speech has to be to entertain. And I know the mistake that I made when I tried to attempt this was I thought I will wait, I will make that one fantastic speech. And when I give it, people are going to laugh and beans, I'm going to have them rolling on the floor. And eventually, when I did, of course, I not only let down the people who were listening, but also myself. So the mistake, what I learned from that was I have to learn to fail early, right? So whatever speech you have, if you think there is some funny content in that, some humor there, go ahead and deliver it. And if you fail, go ahead, take that feedback, adjust, make a new speech, and then you come back again, right? And always remember that anecdotes rather than jokes, right? That's what your speech has to be made of. Because with anecdotes, it helps you pivot. You see people not laughing at something, you're able to use that anecdote and pivot to some other message, right? So you tried to make it entertaining, it didn't happen, so maybe you can make it, you know inspiring, or you maybe use it to encourage someone, or you pivot on that story to ask for a call to action, something. But you can use that story to pivot to when you as you connect to your audience. But when you start saying jokes, some of them might connect, some of them might not, and you don't want to take that risk because you're not be you'll find it difficult to stitch them together in most cases, right? So these are five things that you could use. These are the five projects that you will also need to finish based on the path that you have chosen, but mostly it's those two, right? So that is it. Next, let's, oh yeah, all of these. So managing time, connect with the audience, cross-cultural, and sense of humor, as well as the know your communication style, know your leadership style. These are all 5 to 7 speeches. Playing the table topic master, depending on how big, how long you meet for, how many members are there, if you do you have a prepared speech section. Depending on various factors, it will depend how long your role as a table topics master is. So, but I'm sure you will enjoy that as much as these 5 to 7 speeches. So all the best for that. And finally, of course, you have introduction to Toastmasters mentoring, which is a mandatory project, irrespective of which path you have chosen. So in this, what you have to do is you will clearly define how Toastmasters envisions mentoring, right? So you're defining what is mentoring according to Toastmasters, but you don't have to necessarily talk about your Toastmasters mentor, or you don't have to necessarily talk about how you were while you were being mentored, right? So you will talk, so your speech is going to be a 5 to 7 minute speech about when you were a prodigy. So whether you were a prodigy for when in school, when you had to get into the football team, whether it was at work, when you had a mentor, anything. Or I've heard of people where they say, how in the family, so maybe it was the father or an uncle or a grandfather, how they were able to mentor them, right? Or somebody in their father's business, right? How they became a mentor. So these are things which you have to talk about. How you share the impact and importance of having a mentor. How did it change you as a prodigy or as a mentee, right? And of course, as you go through the project manual, you will realize that something which I will touch upon later is the difference between coaching and mentoring, right? Each of them have fine nuances. It's a duration, how involved that coach or mentor is. There are various things that separate these two roles. So identifying that and working towards that based on what your goal is, that's very important. So going through that project, going through the dashboard, going through the content that is available there is very important in this project, just like the others. And of course, don't be confused with the Pathways Mentor Program. That's a separate um, program that's available on Toastmasters in Pathways. But this is a project that is a Pathways program. Right? So this is just a 5 to 7 minute speech. So these, what we covered so far, are the various projects in level 2. Now, once you finish this and you have your club contest date in the area ISC date, then you go ahead and, or in fact, even if you don't have those dates, start preparing or refining your international speech contest um, speech. Or before that, while researching and getting all these slides done, I've used a pathway resource, which is a PDF created by District 57. And of course, there's a website called karenstory.com, which was created by Frank Story, DTM, from District 18. And of course, I've used extensively the Toastmasters International website. Right. Next, we come to the ISC speech preparation and mentoring. Now, again, I'm going to stop sharing and share some of the notes that I've taken on in this regard. So when you are preparing your international speech contest speech, what you have to understand is, of course, the mentor plays a vital role. But before I move to how your mentor will help you in this task, I'm going to share a few pointers which you need to understand when curating this particular speech. One is understanding your audience, right? Most of the time, at least as we speak, as this session is being recorded, it's mostly going to be an online session. Just hold, please. 1 minute. Right. So when it comes to understanding your audience, you have to realize that you have to tailor your message to resonate with specific needs, specific interests, and some emotions of the audience. That is crucial. Now, you have no control over who your audience is going to be, right? Especially when it's a contest, because you never know where the judges are coming from, most probably, right? And those are some of the most important audiences when it comes to a contest, right? The judges. So you have to understand your audience and then choose your topic or choose the content of your topic, right? It's going to be very difficult for them to have lived the same experience, but the context would definitely be the same. If you're going to be talking about family, of course, most of them have families. If you're talking about work, I'm sure most of them have work. If you're talking about school, I'm sure everybody would have gone to school, right? So the context, or on the broader terms, the audience will be able to resonate with you. But when you start getting into the details, you have to figure out what the specific needs and interests are, how you are bringing that out, how are you addressing the emotions of the audience. These are things that are crucial. And of course, next is crafting a powerful opening and the ending, right? So you have to start with a fantastic uh, uh, emphasis on something important, right? So the main message, how do you uh, go about it in the opening? So the first impression matters, and a compelling start can capture the audience, right? So you need to have the audience's attention and set the tone for the entire speech. So that's why you need to work on a powerful opening. This is, of course, something which the your mentor and other evaluators will help you with that. Next is you have to tell personal stories, right? You cannot, or rather, I would suggest strongly that you do not pull out an anecdote from the internet, however motivating it is, and use that as the basis for the message that you're trying to share. Right? So incorporating personal stories into your speeches, that's where the authenticity comes in. It builds a connection, and its stories are more relatable. And that's how you engage with the audience emotionally. Right? Then there's working on your vocal variety and your mastering your body language. So you have to understand the significance of vocal variety. Now, in this training, maybe my vocal variety hasn't been much, but a dynamic voice with changes in pitch, tone, and pacing. Right? That's what adds depth and emotion to a speech. This is again something which you will need uh, to work on with your mentor. Similarly, with body language, the art of expressing whatever your speech content is, using your body, using gestures, facial expressions, and movement on the stage. Your stage choreography is what we say, right? These can enhance the message, right? And that's what engages the audience. Next is effective use of humor. If you can, go for it. If you can't, I would still urge you to go for it, fail, and then adjust, right? So share your expertise, uh, or not share your expertise, figure out or use the expertise of your mentor or some other humorous speaker that you aspire to emulate. Reach out to them, get their expertise on how you can incorporate humor. It has to be well timed, it has to be relevant, right? These are things that can make the speech enjoyable, and you remember a joke somehow. The content is memorable too. Then there's something where you create a compelling structure, right? So you will have to figure out a way to craft it in a clear and logical structure, right? So having a speech which has backstories, I've seen that work. Like, I'm talking about something, I talk about, okay, but before I get to the next part, let me take you back when this happened, and then you go forward, and this is what happened, this is what is happening right, and then you come back in the middle, but right now this is what is happening in my life. So these kind of, if you are that good a speaker, go for it and make the audiences uh, think, or you make the audiences imagine those jumps in time, right? And if you can, and this can happen only when you have a compelling structure, right? So either you keep it simple or you keep it complicated. Both ways, you have to figure out a way how the structure is going to be conveyed to the audience, because otherwise it's not going to be easily understood or remembered, and we don't want that. Next is connecting with emotion, right? So connecting with the audience emotionally, it'll make the speech more impactful and memorable. So when I talk about emotion, of course, when you use, I've seen vocal variety able to achieve the emotional connect better. So do try to work on that. Then there's the age-old practice, practice, practice. So extensive practice. You rehearse with delivery, timing, building confidence in stage, everything. You have to keep practicing. Same speech over and over. That's what will make you shine on that particular day. Seek and accept feedback, right? So not just from your mentor, figure out other places to take feedback from, right? Audience members. And don't be let down when you get feedback which you think is, uh, you know, uh, it's not good, but which you can choose to ignore feedback, right? So don't take it to heart. Get as much feedback as possible, discuss with your mentor, and then see which one you want to incorporate, which you don't want to incorporate, right? And of course, there's no space for nervousness. There is, but in a good way. So address nervousness, right? You have to figure out a way to manage stage fright, or speaking online, because eventually, as you win, which I know most of you will, eventually you're going to be on stage, right? So you have to address stage fright, nervousness, what techniques to use, control breathing, visualization. These are all effective techniques which you can use. So practice that too. Right? Another is study past champions. You have all the resources on the web, right? Right from each and every world champion video is there. So go ahead, look at that, see what they are doing, see how you can emulate it, right? And then go for curating your speech. And then you have visual aids, right? So utilizing visual aids wisely. Now, it has to be purposeful, right? When you are going to use a prop or a visual aid, make sure it enhances the speech, right? The visual aid should not overshadow the speech, or it should not be something that many will find irrelevant to the speech, right? It has to have, it has to come in at the right moment. It has to be presented in a way where it adds value to the speech, right? So these are things which you need to work on. And you need to have, it may be too ambitious if I say you can start now and uh, get it done by in a few months, but all of you already have a unique style, right? So as you watch past champions, it is you might be inclined to deviate and replicate, but instead of that, try to hold your own. Use your unique style, right? Your unique speaking style, right? So that adds authenticity. It has an individuality, and that's what makes a speaker stand out, right? So that is something which I would urge people to consider. And then there's figuring out how to manage your time efficiently, right? No one wants to cross that 7 minutes 30 seconds. In fact, when it's 7 minutes 25, I hope you're already shaking hands on your way out of the stage, right? So that is something which you need to practice. And more importantly, enjoy the journey. You visualize that you're succeeding. uh, I'm going into the parts where I'm going to talk about how we are not, um, how do you put it, into the philosophical part. But eventually, when you do see this recording, uh, you have to realize that these tips, when you eventually use them, you have to discuss with your mentor at each given stage, right? Only then can you build on it, right? And when your goal from, let's say, January 21st, which is today, to winning a club contest or area contest or a division contest or further down, when this is a small when there's such a small window and you have such a specific uh, target or goal at hand, you'll suddenly realize that it is, your mentor starts taking on the role of a coach. So that's why I had to put that in the earlier slide. So you have something called a mentor and a coach, right? So this is something that we can do. Hi, Kalpana. I apologize if you're not being able to interact, but I'm trying to record this video since we have less audience. I'm going to get this done and then take you up on your queries. Let me share screen now. Got it. Go on. Right. So let's see what we covered here. Right. So understand your audience, craft a powerful opening, tell personal stories, work on vocal variety, master body language, effective use of humor if you can. That's great. Create a compelling structure. Your call. You want to make it complicated. You want to make it simple. But make sure you're able to deliver in that way so that the audience are able to keep up with you. You connect with emotion. I laid stress on how you can use vocal variety to do that. Practice, practice, practice. That's something which you will hear from every speaker, every mentor. Seek and accept feedback. Address nervousness because eventually you are going to speak on the stage, right? Maybe your club level is online, but eventually, as you win, which I hope you will have to speak on the stage. Study past champions, of course, and be careful to not replicate them in their entirety because you need to have and maintain your unique style, which gives you an authentic, uh, it gives you an authentic feel to the way you speak or to the content which you are giving. So create a memorable closing, which ties up with the compelling structure and the powerful opening. When you have to use props, make sure you utilize visual aids wisely. It shouldn't it shouldn't overpower your speech. The focus has to be on the speech, right? The visual aid should just aid. It is a visual aid, a literally visual aid, right? Manage time effectively. Like I said, I hope you are out of the stage shaking hands with the contest chair by 7:25 at the max. Stay inquisitive and learn continuously because that's how you have to treat each and every feedback that you get. Cultivate resilience, especially when you think that your practice is not going the way it is, or you may have given a contest, you didn't put in your best. Be resilient, right? And of course, visualizing success. You just have to be better than what you did yesterday, right? So it's a success in any way, right? You are a better speaker today than you were yesterday if you are going to be practicing this hard. And of course, enjoy the journey because you're definitely going to be better off once you finish this. Now, these are tips you could consider. I say you could consider because I have not gotten past club level in ISC contests. So I'm just curating this from the various videos, various trainings that I've attended. So just sharing that with you. And now let's see how you can use your mentors, right? So you record your speech, share with a few speakers that have impressed you, request for their feedback, right? Your mentor could be in the list, but try giving it to others too. And then you have to figure out how you can get dedicated chunks of time from your mentor, to spend time perfecting the speech. So if you're going to meet them online, you're going to check on stage choreography, you're going to check on audio video, you're going to check on backup devices. You're going to especially want to check audio video at the same time in which the contest is going to happen, right? So if we are sitting on January 21st and my contest is in the evening at 6 p.m., I'll try to align my catch-ups with the mentor so that I'm meeting him around 6 p.m., right? So that he sees what kind of lighting I have, what's the usual, how much energy do I have? These are things which, they are minute, but you need to take care of these. These will eventually build up to that Time your speech, of course, yep, with pauses, with a little room for fumbles. God forbid you forget something, and keep a little buffer, right? Nobody wants to finish their speech at 7:29 or 7:28. If it's packing, you don't want to be there. And then consider giving the speech in other clubs, right? And of course, oh, what about my competitor will hear my speech? Oh, don't worry. Give it in. There's so many clubs. Give your speech in other clubs and ensure your main request to that vice president education should be please assign a good evaluator, and if you can assign your best evaluator, nothing like it. So that is how you could use your prep time. Then you gather all this evaluation, all this feedback, discuss it with your mentor, and then keep on driving ahead to ensure you win, right? So that was it from me. Thank you, everyone. I hope this video comes of use to all of you. Thank you. And let me stop recording, and then Kalpana, I'm going to take